of Judges, chapter 1, verse 1. Mark.
Alright, verse 1. Now it came about after the death of Joshua that the sons of Israel inquired of the Lord, saying, Who shall go up first for us against the Canaanites to fight against them?
Okay. Now, the book of Joshua provides a seam or a link with Deuteronomy, which precedes it. And we're going to see that here momentarily, but we see in Deuteronomy 34, 7 through 9, Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. That means he could still have children at 120. Okay? Then the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days, so the days of weeping and mourning for Moses. By the way, Moses means to draw out, right? Like in Exodus chapter 2. Because I drew him out of the water, she said. Okay. It was 30 days, and the time of weeping for Moses was ended. Now, Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him, which is kind of pausing real quick as a side note. I'm just started memorizing 2 Timothy. This just sparked something. I'm just memorizing 2 Timothy 1, like in verse 4, 5, or 6, he kind of uses the same language. Whereas Moses put his hands on Joshua, are you looking it up, Ron? Thank you. Timothy puts his hands on, or Paul puts his hands on Timothy, and kind of a neat, forerunner kind of package there. And so the Israelites listened to Joshua and did what the Lord had commanded Moses. So that's the last section of Deuteronomy. Then when you get to the beginning of the book of Joshua, now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua the son of Nun, saying, so you have that thematic link there, right, between Deuteronomy and between Joshua. So the book of Judges provides a thematic link with Joshua, the preceding book, because in Joshua 24:29, it says, after these things, Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. Boom, end of the book of Joshua. So how does the book of Judges begin? Now, after the death of Joshua, it came to pass. So you see the links, right? The thematic links there. Now, since the children of Israel at this time do not necessarily have a religious and a cultural and an economic center in the land of Israel, it's not possible, therefore, to pinpoint the exact location, the place name, the site of the event of the opening verses here. Okay? But it's probable that the event in this verse is happening in the regions of Ephraim and Manasseh. And more specifically, archaeologists have found that when the Israelites first entered into the land of Israel, they seemed for, it's not really exactly sure, but why, that they settled on the eastern side. Because right here is the watershed ridge. And that watershed ridge is shaped like this. This is kind of like the Highway 5 in the land of Israel. The main route that connects San Diego and Sacramento and Redding and whatever, right? And that route, connects Beersheba with Bethlehem, with Bethel, and then up to Shechem. But the Israelites seem to settle first on the eastern side of that ridge. Think of it kind of like as the backwaters of the high hill country. They're these tiny little Mickey Mouses, right, who really don't have the wherewithal to really fight at first with like the cats that are in the region. So they kind of go to the sticks, right, in the backwaters. Okay. So that's probably where this verse is opening up. Now, in fact, the end of the book of Joshua portrays the Israelites as departing back to their own inheritance after the last charge that Joshua gave at Shechem. So everyone went back home after Joshua's charge at Shechem. Okay, so they dispersed back to their locales. Nevertheless, the author is going to frame the conflict here in chapter 1 and following between the seed of the woman and between the seed of the serpent. The seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, which of course is rooted or based right from Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. Now, the father of the Canaanites, because we see this in verse number 1, who's going to go up against the Canaanites for us? The father of the Canaanites, of course, was Canaan. You can see this in Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. The sons of Ham, that would be Noah's second-born son. Okay? The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Mizraim in Egypt is the same word. Okay? Same word. So in biblical, modern Hebrew even, to say Egypt, you say Mizraim. Okay? And that's the name mentioned in Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. So the father of the Canaanites, guys, was a descendant of the son of Noah, Ham. And therefore, he would have probably been the grandson of Noah. So there was a real man whose name was Canaan. Okay? And he was the progenitor of what would eventually become the Canaanites. Settled in the land of Canaan, and it would, of course, become Israel shortly thereafter, shortly after the time of, not the flood, but the time of, I don't know what we could say, maybe shortly after Abraham. Okay, put it that way. Okay, that's verse number 1. Verse number 2. Lane.
And the Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand.
Okay, verse number 2. Now, just as Joshua, quote unquote, like took the place of Moses at the beginning of the book of Joshua, right? Now, after the death of Moses, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua the son of Nun, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people. So he's leading the people. So just as Joshua takes the place of Moses at the beginning of the book of Joshua, now the tribe of Judah, quote unquote, takes the place of Joshua to lead Israel to its conquest of inheriting the rest of the land. Right? Joshua, of course, did not conquer the whole land. For example, he did not conquer Gaza. Gaza literally means strong, strong. And Gaza is so big, and Gaza is so bad, and Gaza is so strong, located at the crosshairs of the Spice Route and the International Highway, kind of like being located on 5 and 80. Okay? It was just too big of a city that there was no way Joshua could take it. So whatever land still needed to be conquered and inherited. Now, it is in this book as if humans as if humans take center stage in the book, and God begins to kind of go exiting the stage left. Okay? Humans become center stage in the book, and God, the hornet at the end of Joshua, etc. Right? These kind of words of God seems to kind of just exit to stage left. The method used to determine the will of the Lord is not given here. Okay? But it is likely the Urim and the Tumim. Now we read about the Urim and the Tumim in the Torah. By the way, law, L-A-W, is a bad translation for Torah. Okay? Better one's instruction. Instruction. Much better translation. So they're probably using the Urim and the Tumim. Now, much debate has been spent on determining what exactly the Urim and the Tumim are, if indeed this is what they're using here. Now, since Urim, the first letter of the word Urim begins with an aleph, with the first letter of the alphabet, and Tumim begins with the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Tav, it could mean that all 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet were contained in some kind of pouch on broken pieces of pottery or on stones or something like that. 22 of them. And each one had the letter of the Hebrew alphabet on it. And then, through God's providence, the answer to the question that you were beseeching God for would be retrieved by taking the letters out of the pouch, one at a time. possible. It's a possible understanding of how they determine the will of God, right, in verse number 2. Verse number 3, John.
And Judah said to Simeon his brother, "Come up with me into the territory allotted to me, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I likewise will go with you into the territory allotted to you." So Simeon went with him.
Okay, so the elders, or the sheiks, or the tribesmen, the old leaders, the elders of the tribe of Judah, okay, they persuaded the elders of the tribe of Simeon. Now, as you can see here, Simeon, their territory allotted to them was within the territory of Judah, as you can see from the map. Okay? And eventually Simeon becomes absorbed into Judah because they're surrounded on every side. But they persuade the Simeonites to come with them to fight against the Canaanites. Now, the tribe of Simeon could never hold on to their allotment, their given territory, for various reasons. First of all, since Simeon's territory was allocated in the region of the biblical Negev, by the way, when you read south in your Bible, that's more often than not Negev. And Negev is a region which looks like a sideways number 8 or a bow tie, with Beersheba in the middle, okay, Arad on the eastern end, and then Gerar, which is not on the map, or Sarah is another suggestion for the location of Gerar, on the western end. So because the Simeonites lived in this region, and they were small in number, they did not have the necessary resources to hang on to this land. Now, the land that Simeon was given was very precious because it was on the spice route, which you can see here. The spice route was that 1,500-mile long route that went from the modern-day United Arab Emirates in the Persian Gulf region through Arabia to Gaza. And then all of the goodies, all the top shelf, gold, frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, calamus, cinnamon, all these kind of things were shipped on camels up and down that route. And then they were brought to Gaza, and then from Gaza, then they were shipped all over the Mediterranean seaboard to the Macy's in Alexandria and in Rome and anywhere else, okay? So because Simeon's located right smack dab on that route, and that route is ruled by the cats, the strong ones, the little Mickey Mouse has no chance. Okay? All right, now thirdly, the prophecy of Jacob in Genesis 49. Genesis 49 is his swan song. He knows he's going to die, so he gathers himself together, all of his sons, and then he speaks short, pithy statements on what he foresees happening to them, okay? And the prophecy of Jacob promises them to be scattered, Simeon, to be scattered in the land. As we see here, I will scatter them in Jacob, speaking of Simeon, and disperse them in Israel. And of course, their violent behavior at Shechem in Genesis 34, that's when Simeon and Levi slaughtered every single man, woman, and child in Shechem, after the king of Shechem abused Dinah. Remember that account in Genesis 34 where they hoodwinked them by making a covenant with them, by having all the Shechemite men be circumcised. And while they were still sore, Simeon and Levi pounced on the city, probably with help, and killed them all. Okay? And so because they did that, that prohibited them from having their own inheritance. So it seems then much later, according to 2 Chronicles 34, 5, and 6, that the tribe of Simeon eventually settled in or absorbed themselves into the high, hilly region of Manasseh. 2 Chronicles 34, 5, and 6, he, that's Josiah, burned the bones of the priests on the altars, so he purged Judah and Jerusalem in the towns of Manasseh and Ephraim and Simeon. There you go. So it seems Simeon has somehow absorbed itself into Manasseh and Ephraim in the north, as far as Naphtali. Okay? Verse number 4. Ron?
And Judah went up and the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand, and they slew them in Bezek 10,000 men.
Okay, the Canaanites and the Perizzites had been settled in the land of Canaan long before Joshua entered in the conquest, and long before the Israelites even entered into the land. Now, it is probable that these people groups, they had been living in the land of Canaan for at least 500 years up to the book of Judges, because they're mentioned together as being established in the land during the life of Abraham, which we see in Genesis 13:7. And quarreling arose between Abraham's servants and Lot's servants, and the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt then in the land. Same people groups, okay? 500 years earlier, living in Canaan. Now, the Perizzites, they find somewhat of a prominent position in the early chapters of the scriptures. They're mentioned in about 75% of the lists of pre-Israelite nations in the land of Canaan. For example, like in Genesis chapter 15. Right? He says, "Unto thy seed will I give the land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Cadmonites, the Kenizzites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaims, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites." So those kind of lists that we have in the early scriptures, right? The Perizzites are mentioned in 75% of those lists. Perizzites. Not a very nice name. It kind of sounds like a parasite, you know. But anyways, the Perizzites. Now, since the term Perizzite is linked to the word Perazzi, which means something like quote-unquote rural country. Rural country. Think of Manta, up in the hills, okay? Some have suggested that these Canaanites, because they're under the umbrella of what a Canaanite is, that they dwelt in unwalled villages in the high hill country of Ephraim and Manasseh. They lived amongst the Israelites in the high hill country. It's a possibility. Now, geographically, we see in this verse, the tribes are literally, they're going up. They're going up. And they're going up in elevation to Bezek. Bezek. If they are indeed coming from the region of Judah, which it doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't be. Now, one theory suggests that both Judah and Simeon were kind of like semi-settled in the region of Manasseh at this time. And they weren't even in the region of Judah and of Simeon because of the conflict in the land. It's just a possibility. Now, Bezek, nevertheless, the site of Bezek is later mentioned in the scriptures as being the location of Saul's census in 1 Samuel 11:8. When Saul mustered them at Bezek, the men of Israel numbered 300,000 and those of Judah 30,000. And since Saul's messengers sent word to Jabesh Gilead to assure them that they would come to their assistance the next day from Bezek, verse 11:9, they told the messengers who had come, "Say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, by the time the sun is hot tomorrow, you will be rescued." When the messengers went and reported this to the men of Jabesh, they were elated. So the site of Bezek has to be within a one-day journey to the region of Manasseh. It has to be close enough to get there, right, by the time the sun is hot tomorrow. Wow. The site fits nicely with the preservation of a place name. In the modern day place name is Kirbet Ibzik. Kirbet Ibzik. And it's a large site on the main route, as you can see here, going from Shechem to Bet-Shan. And Jabesh Gilead is just a 1 day's, as you can see here, journey away. So Judah is right down here, and they gather together, the men of Simeon. They take the watershed ridge up north, past Gibeah, Bethel, Shiloh, Shechem, and then they're going to, boom, try and hit Bezek. Now the tribes of Judah and Simeon obviously felt threatened by these other mice, these other Canaanites in the hill country. And the reason they probably felt, one reason at least, that they felt threatened by them is because the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Israelites, all these kind of mice, they are all vying for grazing rights and trade opportunities. Right? This is the land of the shepherd and the farmer. This is an agriculturally based society. Shepherd and farmer. So they're vying for these grazing rights, trade opportunities to Bet-Shan, right here, and to the east of the Jordan Valley. All right, verse number 5. Verse number 5. Mark.
They found, need some help with that, Adonai-Bezek and fought against him, and they defeated the Canaanites and the Perizzites.
Very good. Now, there's his name, Adonai-Bezek. The Canaanite king's name means Lord of Bezek. Lord of Bezek. The Hebrew word Bezek probably means something like fragment or sherd, like a potsherd, like a broken piece of pot. That's probably what the name Bezek means. And it can possibly be referring to the physical setting, how the site of Bezek looked, how it was settled on a rocky city. Just had that image of like a unhewn, unkept, rocky kind of look. So they called the city something like that, Bezek. Another option for the interpretation of his name is, my Lord is Bezek. Not Lord of Bezek, but my Lord is Bezek. And that would be an unknown Canaanite deity, Bezek, some kind of Canaanite deity, possible. Now, this is the only passage that Bezek is mentioned in throughout all the scriptures. The only other narrative in the scriptures that also records 10,000 men being slain is also the book of Judges. And we'll see that later, and that's during the time of Ehud. During the time of Ehud.
It says in Strong's that it also means lightning.
Lightning. Okay. Bezek, Barak. Because Barak means lightning. And Bezek, Barak. So Adonai, Bezek. Yeah, you know why? Because the Tau, see what could have been Bezek, and what could have happened is this turned into that. And if that did, you could just see how that could happen, right, with a slip of a pen. And now that turned into lightning, to Barak. Maybe. And that happens sometimes, which we'll see later in the book. How just a slip of the pen by a scribe, right, can change what we're looking at. All right, verse number 6. Lane.
But Adonai-Bezek fled, and they pursued after him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and his great toes.
Okay. Now it does not say which direction he fled, but likely he fled north. He's right here, okay? Likely he fled north on the main route to the Egyptian hub of Rehov or Bet-Shan, where those dots are right there. Okay? probably ran to one of those two cities that were under Egyptian control, right on that highway right there. Now, cutting off his thumbs and his toes was an ancient method of treating captured enemies, which rendered them permanently incapable of performing their duties as a soldier. Okay. Verse number 7. John.
And Adonai-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off used to pick up scraps under my table. As I have done, so God has repaid me. And they brought him to Israel, and he died there.
Oh, your says they brought him to Israel? In verse number 7?
It says Jerusalem.
Oh, Jerusalem. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. So upon his being captured, the Canaanite king confesses that he himself was infamous for practicing the same cruelties on many of the royal captives whom he had taken captive in battle. This practice of cutting off the toes and cutting off the hand, the fingers, was an very cruel practice in the world of the Bible, and it transcended cultures and religions. The Assyrian kings were apparently very fond of boasting of such triumphs. What you're looking at here is an Egyptian relief of cutting off the hands. And in this particular scene, what's happening is as a soldier, you would get paid kind of as a mercenary for how much work you do. It depends how much you get paid. And in order to prove how much work you did, you had to bring back the right hand of every man that you killed at the end of the day. Okay, and so for every right hand you bring back, you get a piece of silver or something like that. But the Assyrian kings, they were very fond of boasting of these kind of triumphs. Ashur-Israpal, 833 BC, he boasted, "Their men, young and old, I took prisoners. Of some I cut off their feet and their hands. Of others I cut off their noses, their ears, and their lips. Of the young men's ears I made a heap. Of the old men's heads I built a tower." Apparently, now, Bezek, the king, apparently being rendered ineffective, he was brought to Jerusalem, quote unquote, to live out his days in the Canaanite city center of Jebus. The reason we say quote unquote, because Jerusalem's not apparently called Jerusalem until David conquers it, which is like a couple hundred years after this. Okay? Brings them to Jebus. All right? Verse number 8. Right.
And the sons of Judah fought against Jerusalem and captured it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire.
This is the first recorded incident in the Bible of Jerusalem being besieged and destroyed. First time that Jerusalem is besieged and destroyed. Now, taking place some 400 years approximately before David conquered the same stronghold, the Jebusite stronghold, we may infer that this siege mentioned here was only a partial siege, since the city regained its glory later in the book, okay, and long before David conquered the same city. The only other person or people group in the scriptures to set Jerusalem on fire, besides Judah here, was Nebuchadnezzar in 586. Jeremiah 21:10. Some have calculated that Jerusalem has been besieged and destroyed 27 times in recorded history. 27 times in recorded history. Verse, and that, by the way, is from E.W. Bullinger. E.W. Bullinger, for you gematria and numerology fans out there. It's an interesting read. from the early 20th century. An early Christmas present, Ryan, you can give me E.W. Bullinger's commentary on the book of Revelation.
Are you going to be doing that next?
I don't know. I don't know. I want to read it now. I want to read what he has to say.
Well, you could.
Yeah, I think
Now
I
you have to
have
go for the interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll see. All right. By the way, we're going to go 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break. 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break. All right, verse number 9. Mark.
Afterwards, the sons of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country and in the Negev and in the lowland.
So after resecuring a foothold in the northern region of Ephraim and Manasseh, by driving out the Canaanites, driving out Bezek, driving out the Perizzites, they follow the watershed ridge, the main highway. They follow it south. They conquer Jebus or Jerusalem, right here. And now Judah seeks to regain their tribal allotment, the territory given to them in Joshua chapter 1, by penetrating as far south as the Negev, that transition area from the high hill countries to the desert. Verse 10. Mike.
And Judah went against the Canaanites that dwelt in Hebron, and they slew Sheshai, and Ahiman, and Talmai.
Here's the thing with names. As long as you look like you know what you're doing, people will just say, oh wow, look at how good he is at pronouncing those names. So just with confidence say it, and it'll be fine.
Okay, sure.
All right. Judah's aspiring to reclaim Hebron, a city with deep religious and historical ties to the Israelites. Genesis chapter 25, for example, right? This is where Abraham buys his cemetery, basically. Judah now regains the natural capital of the region of Judah, Hebron, the breadbasket of the country. By taking Hebron now, it gives Judah tremendous options. Judah now heads to the east. They have the wilderness of Judah. They have a buffer zone, a defensive natural fortification to the east. To the west, they have opportunity. They can take the Highway 99s and the Highway 40s that hook up to the big routes, and they can now trade, right, with the spice route, with the cats walking up and down the Highway 5. They're at 2,400 feet above, or about 2,800 feet above elevation. They get about 24 inches of rain a year. It's the breadbasket. Think like the Midwest is the breadbasket of America, right? This is the breadbasket of Israel. It's Hebron. And now, not only does it provide all the foodstuffs and all the goodies, but now you have those sites, those places with those deep religious, historical ties to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now you have those back in your pocket. All right? All right, verse number 11. John.
From there they went against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir was formerly Kiriath Sefer.
Good. Still marching south from Hebron, with their eye towards Beersheba, Judah next attacked Debir, which stood, as you can see from the map right here, just off of, or just astride from the watershed ridge, from Highway 5. Now, the place name of Debir is a good example, like I mentioned earlier, of how the transposition of letters can occur over history by scribes. All right? Now, the biblical site of Debir, which is right here, Debir, should be identified with a modern day site, Tel Rabud. That's the name of it today, Debir, Tel Rabud, even though there's no similarity when you first look at it in regards to the etymology of the word. Now, here's what happened. the Rosh, the Bet, and the Dalet, Debir, this is the real name. What happened is the scribe copied it, and he accidentally did that. And somehow along the lines, this happened, and the place picked up this name, the incorrect. Okay. Now, the city beforehand was called Kiryat Sefer, and it means the city of the book. The city, Kiryat Sefer, the city of the book. And you can run with ideas on why it was called that, but nevertheless, upon taking Debir, Judah now extended their fortification of their home base of Hebron, all right, now farther south. All right, so Hebron is like their quarterback, and then their offensive line is pushing farther south down the highway, giving their quarterback more room in the pocket and more safety in the pocket to do what he wants. Okay? Verse number 12. Right?
And Caleb said, He that smiteth Kirjath Sephir and taketh it, to him I will give Asha, my daughter, to wife.
All right, there's Caleb's name in Hebrew. Now, Caleb's name means something like dog, but not in the traditional derogatory sense of the ancient Near Eastern concept of dogs. Now, of course, dogs were considered unclean, Revelation 22:15. Outside the holy city in the New Jerusalem, outside are, first and foremost, dogs. Sorry, you poodle lovers. The dogs were considered the garbage men of antiquity, right? You didn't have someone who came every Thursday morning and woke up your kids at 7 o'clock in the morning, right, by picking up the garbage and dumping it on the ground, right? The garbage men were dogs, 2 Kings 9:35. With Jezebel, and they went to bury her, but they could find no more of her except the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands, because the dogs, right, the dogs ate her. That's what happens. You throw your garbage out the window in the world of the Bible, in your city, and then the dog comes and picks it up. So we should understand the name of Caleb to be either displaying the attributes of a hunting dog, someone who would be hot on the scent of God's trail, all right, like a hunting dog would be. Or it can relate the meaning of faithfulness to God, as a dog is supposedly man's best friend. And we see here in this image of a pharaoh on the hunt. And who's on the hunt with the pharaoh? His faithful hunting dogs. His faithful hunting dogs. Think of that, that's what kind of Caleb's name is, packaged in that way. Okay? Nevertheless, Caleb is now set apart from all the generation of the Israelites that died in the wilderness, and finally inheriting his land in Hebron and Debir. And the reason he finally gets to inherit his land, of course, is because of what his name is. His name is reflective of who he is, because of his faithfulness to God, Numbers 14:24. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. So he's the only one besides Joshua among all the wanderers in the wilderness who inherited their own land, right? Once they entered into the land of Canaan. Now, the meaning of the name of Achash is uncertain, but some suggest it could be related to the Hebrew word Haksim, which was the cosmopolitan and charming anklet or bracelets that women wore in Jerusalem, right, on their feet. It could be, her name could come from that word. And an example of is Isaiah 3:16, where Isaiah gives a really detailed cosmopolitan sketch of what the lifestyles of the rich and famous women in Jerusalem were wearing in the 7th century. The Lord says, beautiful Zion is haughty, craning her elegant neck, flirting with her eyes, walking with dainty steps. And here you go, tinkling her ankle bracelets. Okay? Ankle bracelet. That's what her name can mean. All right? Why do they have to use the word tinkling? I don't know. Mark 13.
Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured him. So he gave him his daughter, Achsah, for a wife.
The nephew of Caleb was Othniel. Othniel, which means Lion of God. Lion of God. Now, the nephew of Caleb, Othniel, conquers this strategically located city, and thereby, in good ancient Near Eastern fashion, keeps the family tree within the same tribe by marrying his cousin. And also, now enjoys the benefits of becoming a mighty man who ruled a city which was eventually absorbed into Judah. Verse 14. Right?
And it came to pass, when she came to him, that she moved him to ask of her father a field. And she lighted from off her ass, and Caleb said unto her, What wilt thou?
Oh, the good old King James. Yes. I use it too. That's okay.
It's my first time.
What's that?
It's my first time using it. I just forgot about it.
Yeah, it's okay. I use it. It just has funny words sometimes. That's all. Okay. Now, more often than not, in antiquity, guys, nobility in the upper class, they rode on donkeys. Now, we see this, for example, Judges 10:4. He had 30 sons who rode, this is Gideon, I think, who rode 30 donkeys. They controlled 30 towns in Gilead, which to this day are called Havot Yair. No, it's not Gideon, it's Yair. Sorry. But the point is the sons rode donkeys. That's like a big deal to the writer here, because nobility rides upon donkeys. And if it's neatly with the narrative, well, here's another example, Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice greatly, shout, Zion, shout, daughter of Jerusalem, see your king comes to you righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Nobility rides upon, especially a white donkey, in the world of the Bible. Now, it fits neatly with the narrative, since we know she is the daughter of who? Of the famous Caleb. Caleb is like no slouch, okay? He's noble. Utilizing the very wise ancient Near Eastern method of using a middleman, she compels her new husband to ask the patriarch of the family, Caleb, for another prize. And she does that while the getting is good. Hit it while it's hot. Or maybe it was proper etiquette for her to ask her father instead of Othniel to ask her father. Verse number 15. John.
She said to him, Give me a blessing, since you have set me in the land of the Negev. Give me also springs of water. And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs.
Okay, so there's the picture on the map of where Debir is. Now, what are they concerned about? They're concerned about water rights. Why are they concerned about water rights? They're concerned about water rights being a soft or a dry land. And that would be of the utmost importance to an agriculturally based society. You cannot go to Circle K and buy 3 Red Bulls and a Gatorade, right? You've got to use a well, a spring, and you have to control that spring and have rights to that spring. And if someone comes and drinks from that well or spring, you can kill them in their world. It's like a big deal. Now, the area of the Negev, as you can see on the map, which is right here, right where Beersheba is right here. It's just south of Debir, right on this route right here. And it's this transitional region, which only gets about 6 inches of rain a year right here. And And they right here get about 24 inches of rain a year. So ensuring water rights, this would position her and position her family with great possibilities of economic advancement in the future. It's like owning a gas station, basically, on Highway 99 or on Highway 97 in Oregon. And there's no fuel, you'll see the sign, no fuel for 97 miles, you know? And that one and only fuel stop at 97 miles, if you don't buy it from them, who are you gonna buy it from? Your car's gonna run out of gas. You have to buy it from them. And so they can charge you what they want, within reason. And that's kind of the same idea of ensuring these water rights in this passage. Now today, these springs of water are known. And you can go there today and they are called, I've never been there, but they are called the Springs of the Leeches. The Springs of the Leeches. We'll pause real quick. It's a nice scene. And we'll take a 13-minute break.